Sardinia is an island located to the west of Italy and Sicily and south of Corsica. The capital of Sardinia is Cagliari, and it is called La Costa Smeralda for a reason. Sardinia has been populated since the early Stone Age. The old volcano Monte Arci provided plenty of obsidian for the making of tools and weapons before metal had been developed. Early constructions include Domus de Janus, the House of Fairies and Witches. Su Nuragic di Baromini is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Nuragic Sardinians allied with the Phoenicians as the island was attacked first by Carthage in the 6th century BC and then Rome in 238 BC. To learn more about La Bella Italia, consider subscribing. A typical Bronze Age structure is the complex of Baromini and the Giant's Tomb. The Sardinians traded very successfully with the Mycenaeans and Crete, trading copper and lead. It benefited from its central position between Carthage, Spain, France, and the Etruscans, which was mainland Italy. By the 8th century BC, Phoenicians from Lebanon had founded several towns near rivers and natural harbours, including Tharos, Bithyia, Sulci, Nora, and Caralis, which is Cagliari. After earlier failed attempts, Carthage gained a foothold on the island in 510 BC. The Romans defeated the Carthaginians in the naval battle of Sulci in 258 BC. In 238 BC, the Romans annexed both Corsica and Sardinia from the Carthaginians, but the islanders never truly accepted foreign rule. Sardinia and Sicily were now the granaries of the Roman Empire. As the Romans were crushed by Hannibal at Cannae in 216 BC, an uprising was led by Cornus, Tharos, Hampsicora, and Hanno. A Roman army led by Titus Manlius Torquatus crushed the rebellion at Milis and Decimomannu. A later uprising in 177-176 BC was quelled brutally by Tiberius Gracchus, and another by Marcellus Caecilius Metellus in 115-111 BC, and finally Titus Albusius in 106 BC. The Sardinian resistance retreated to the mountains, which the Romans called Barbaria, but the resistance was never completely subdued. As the Western Roman Empire collapsed, the Vandals ruled Sardinia between 456 and 534. In AD 530, a power struggle in Carthage caused Godas to be sent to Sardinia to demand loyalty. He disobeyed his orders, and instead he repudiated Carthage and began negotiations with Emperor Justinian, the Byzantine monarch. In AD 533, Gelimer sent the bulk of his Vandal army and navy to chastise Godas in Sardinia. This decision had tragic consequences, as Justinian's army used this opportunity and led by Belisarius to attack a defenceless Carthage at the Battle of Tricamarum. As Carthage fell to the Arabs in 697, Moor and Berber pirates soon began to raid the Byzantine island of Sardinia. In the 8th and 9th centuries, the four regions in Sardinia, Logudoro or Torres, Cagliari or Pluminos, Arborea and Gallura, grew increasingly independent of each other. Tharos, Caralis and other towns were abandoned due to Saracen attacks. An enormous Saracen attack in 1015-1016, led by Mujahid al-Amiri, also known as Musetto, was only stopped by the Sicilians and the support of the navies of the city-states of Pisa and Genoa, and this was largely due to the rallying cry of Pope Benedict VIII. Each of the 4 separate regions incurred huge damage in this period. Benedictine monks were sent from the Italian mainland and immediately began to improve the agriculture on the island. As the War of the Sicilian Vespers raged, the Pope offered a trade with James II of Aragon, an exchange of Sardinia for Sicily. In 1324, Aragon Crown Prince Alfonso's army occupied Cagliari and Gallura, the new kingdom of Sardinia and Corsica. In 1353, Peter IV of Aragon granted Sardinia a limited parliament. In the late 14th century, Eleanor of Arborea created a legal code establishing citizens' rights which would last for hundreds of years, the Carta del Logo. Amongst other things, it allowed women to own property and refuse marriage. Uprisings between 1353 and 1409, led by Marianus IV, Hugh III, and Brancaleone Doria, regained control of Sardinia, with the exception of the Aragonese strongholds of Cagliari and Alghero. This was the Sardinian Aragonese War. In 1409, Martin I of Sicily defeated the Sardinians at the Battle of Sanluri, despite being heavily outnumbered. The misery piled on for Sardinia. It was hit by repeated attacks by pirates and also the plague. In this period, the Spanish built watchtowers all along the coast, Spanish watchtowers to warn and defend against Ottoman incursions. In 1607 and 1617, universities were founded in Cagliari and Sassari. A French fleet led by Henri, Count of Harcourt, sacked Oristano in 1637. In particular, the famine of 1680 caused terrible damage and hundreds of thousands of people died. Sardinia passed to Emperor Charles VI in 1714 and then in 1720 to the House of Savoy under Vittorio Amadeo II. In 1793, the Sardinians beat off French invaders, who included a young Napoleon Bonaparte, near the Maddalena archipelago and also near Cagliari. A request of the Sardinians was to have the same rights as those on the Italian mainland. This request was promptly refused. An uprising predictably ensued in 1794, known as the Sardinian Vespers. Demonstrations broke out against feudalism in Sassari. Giovanni Maria Angioy was tasked with finding a solution, but heavily outnumbered, he fled to Paris and asked instead for the French to invade Sardinia. The French ousted King Charles Emanuele IV from Piedmont in 1799 and moved his court to Cagliari. The final Muslim attack on Sardinia fell on Sant'Antioco in 1815. In 1820, the Savoyards passed a shocking law which made the entire island of Sardinia private property. It was the Enclosures Act. Predictably, riots ensued in 1868. In 1847, King Charles Albert granted Sardinians equal rights with Italians. A steamboat ferry was established between Sardinia and Genova. The economy at this point was now based on agriculture, sheep and mining. In 1848, the Italian Wars of Independence began and lasted for more than a decade. Giuseppe Garibaldi bought most of the island Caprera in the Maddalena archipelago after losing his hometown of Nice. Compendio Garibaldino is now the most visited Sardinian museum as a result. In 1861, Sardinia became part of the Kingdom of Italy. The forests were decimated and the taxes doubled. Under Fascism, swamps were reclaimed. Fascist rule was ruthless, but generated very little interest in Sardinia. Indeed, Antonio Gramsci, a founder of the Italian Communist Party, was arrested and died in prison. Michele Schirru was executed after a failed attempt to kill Benito Mussolini. The Sardinian writer Grazia Deledda won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1926. During World War II, Sardinia was the location of an airbase as well as a naval base, and was consequently heavily bombed by the Allies, and Cagliari was singled out for particularly devastating treatment. In 1946, Italy became a republic. Malaria had been successfully eliminated, which meant by 1951 a Sardinian tourist boom began, where people enjoyed the stunning coastline. In the 1960s, major infrastructure projects began on the island. The 1973 oil crisis had a devastating impact on Sardinia and caused mass unemployment. Sardinian nationalism emerged again in the 1970s and resulted in kidnappings, which lasted until the 1990s, and the separatist groups also caused a number of bombings. Tell me some things about Sardinia I don't know. Well, Sardinia is famous for a form of vocal music called polyphony, canto a tenore, and this has been lauded by Frank Zappa, Ornette Coleman and Peter Gabriel. Sardinia is famous for its pane carasau, a flatbread. Annually, Sardinia hosts the Loro Piana Super Yacht Regatta and also the Maxi Yacht Rolex Cup. Portopollo, north of Palau, is a bay well known by windsurfers and kitesurfers. Did you know you can go skiing in Sardinia? Sardinia has 3 national parks. The most notorious is Asinara National Park, also known as Devil's Island, and home to an infamous penal colony. Flavio Briatore is the famous resident in Sardinia. He is a former Formula One owner and is also owner of the Billionaire nightclub, the most famous nightclub in Sardinia. So what can you do in Sardinia? Visit the Castello and the Duomo in Cagliari, learn about Nuragic civilization at the National Archaeological Museum in Cagliari. You can eat street food at San Benedetto Market in Cagliari. You can enjoy the Strada Panoramica, the scenic road from Porto Teolada to Chia. Tuereda Beach is famous for its turquoise water. You can take a trip to Sant'Antioco Island. You can go surfing in Fontana Mare Beach. Arutas and Puzzuidu are believed to be the most beautiful beaches in Sardinia. Alghero is very nice, but some people find it a bit chocolate boxy. You can take a boat trip to the Neptune Caves. If you like walking along stunning coastlines, try Costa Paradiso. You can go celebrity spotting at Costa Smeralda and Portocervo, but bear in mind a number of the beaches are privately owned. And you can go hiking at Goropu Gorge.